They say every woman hides a truth so deep it could change the way she sees herself. For me, that truth began the night I realized my heart wasn't where it should have been. Not with Daniel. The man everyone thought was perfect for me. Daniel was everything a woman is told to want. Kind, steady, reliable. He remembered birthdays, opened doors, and made plans that felt safe. But somewhere inside, a quiet emptiness lived, a hollow space I couldn't name. It was the kind of silence that grows between two people who care, yet no longer connect. And then there was Ethan, Daniel's best friend. He never said much, but when he did, people listened. Tall, calm, confident in a way that needed no effort. The first time his eyes met mine, something inside me shifted. It wasn't a passing glance. It was recognition, like he saw beyond the version of me I showed the world. The polite smiles, the measured laughter, the woman who pretended she was content. At first, I dismissed it as imagination. I told myself I was being foolish, but the memory of that look stayed with me like a shadow that refused to fade. Every time we met, the air carried an unspoken tension, quiet but alive. Days became weeks. Sometimes I caught Ethan watching me from across the room, never long enough to be obvious, just enough to make my pulse quicken. And maybe I started watching too. Then came that night, the one I still replay in my mind. We were at my apartment, all three of us. Laughter, snacks, background music, the kind of evening that should have meant nothing. Then Daniel's phone rang, a work call. He smiled, patted Ethan's shoulder and said, "Bro, keep her company. I'll be back in an hour." That 1 hour changed everything. For a while we both tried to act normal. Ethan scrolled through his phone. I pretended to watch TV. But the silence thickened until even the ticking clock felt loud. I stood up suddenly. "I'll make tea," I said, needing distance. He followed, not close, just near enough to feel his presence. I could sense him without turning around. My hands shook as I reached for the kettle. The cup slipped, hot tea spilling across the counter. "You okay?" Ethan asked, moving quickly toward me. His hand caught mine, firm, steady, warm. That touch wasn't just touch. It was a conversation we'd both been avoiding, a confession made without words. For a moment, neither of us moved. The world shrank to the space between his hand and mine. I should have stepped back, but didn't. My breath faltered. The sound of it felt too loud. He was close now. Close enough that I could feel the heat of his body, the weight of his silence. When I looked up, his eyes were already waiting. There was no smile, no question, just quiet certainty. His hand moved, slow, hesitant, resting at my waist, giving me time to stop him. I didn't, I should have, but something inside me whispered louder than reason. "Don't pull away." When his lips brushed the side of my neck, I froze, not in fear, but in surrender. His fingers grazed the skin beneath my shirt, tentative yet deliberate. It wasn't wild or rushed. It was fragile, trembling, alive. Every second felt like stolen air. We didn't cross every line that night. No clothes were removed, no words of love exchanged. But something broke quietly inside me, the thin line between loyalty and desire. When Daniel returned, Ethan and I acted as though nothing had changed. We laughed, we talked, but both of us knew the truth, a truth neither of us could admit aloud. That night, I lay awake beside Daniel, his arm draped across me, and all I could feel was the echo of Ethan's touch on my skin. I told myself it meant nothing, a mistake, a moment. But deep down I knew it wasn't just that. It was the start of something I couldn't undo. And maybe that's what frightened me most. Not what had happened, but how much I wanted it to happen again. The days after that night were quieter than I expected. Ethan didn't text, didn't call. I didn't either. But the silence between us carried weight, a secret that changed everything, even when nothing was said. Whenever Daniel mentioned him, a subtle ache rose inside me. I smiled when I was supposed to, nodded at the right moments, but beneath that calm exterior, something was unraveling. It wasn't guilt alone. It was longing. Every time I replayed that night, the memory didn't fade. It grew sharper, the warmth of Ethan's hand, the breath between us, the way the world disappeared for a heartbeat. It felt both wrong and real, like a truth I wasn't ready to face. Weeks passed. Daniel was busier than ever, often away on late meetings or weekend calls. I filled my days with work, errands, routine, all the small things that keep a heart distracted. But every buzz of my phone made me wonder if it was him. It never was. Then one afternoon, fate decided to test me again. I was coming out of a bookstore when I saw him. Ethan, standing by his car, sunlight catching the edge of his face. For a moment I froze. My pulse quickened, my thoughts scattered, our eyes met. Just that, and yet it was enough. A quiet nod, an invitation without words. I could have walked away. I should have, but I didn't. We ended up talking beside his car. At first it was nothing. Weather, work, little things to fill the space. But underneath, the same tension pulsed like a heartbeat. We both pretended not to hear. Then he said it. I haven't stopped thinking about you. Those words hit harder than I expected, not because I hadn't imagined hearing them, but because deep down I'd wanted to. The world seemed to still around us. Every sound, every thought fell away until only his voice remained. We didn't make promises. We didn't plan. But something changed in that moment. A message the next day. A short call the week after. Nothing constant, nothing obvious. Yet every exchange carried the weight of what we weren't saying. I told myself it was harmless. That I could keep it under control. But the truth is, once a line is crossed, you can't redraw it. Daniel still looked at me with love, a kind of blind trust that both comforted and crushed me. Some nights, as I lay beside him, I'd feel his warmth and wonder how I became someone who could love one man and think of another. It wasn't that I stopped loving Daniel. Maybe I loved him in a quieter, steadier way, the kind that feels like home but not passion. What I felt for Ethan was something else entirely. It wasn't safe. It was alive. Every glance across a room, every shared silence when he visited with Daniel. It all carried a hidden current. A language no one else could hear. And in those moments I realized how fragile secrets can be. They don't stay buried. They breathe. One evening, Daniel invited him over again. The three of us sat together, laughing about work and old college stories. On the surface, everything looked ordinary. But across the couch, Ethan's eyes found mine. Just for a second. And in that second, everything came rushing back. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, I lay staring at the ceiling, my mind refusing to rest. I wondered if Ethan thought about me too. If he regretted it or wanted more, or if to him, it was just a passing moment that only I kept alive. Sometimes I wish I could go back to the night before everything began, before the first glance, the first touch. But wishing doesn't rewrite truth. The truth is, part of me felt more alive in those stolen moments than I ever had in all the safe years before. And that's what terrifies me, that maybe desire shows us who we really are. I don't know what future waits for us, for me, for Daniel, for the space Ethan now occupies in my thoughts. But I do know this. Once you've been truly seen by someone, seen beyond your roles, your duties, your masks, it changes you forever. Maybe it wasn't love. Maybe it was only the thrill of being seen, understood, desired. But whatever it was, it left a mark that time can't wash away. Because every woman carries a secret, and mine still whispers his name.